but she never got the full grand jury, or at least the majority that voted to indict, to actually look at the indictment and ensure that it reflected their charges. That is a defect in the indictment. It means the indictment can't stand. I think that indictment is very likely to be thrown out. You have to get the grand jury's approval on the exact indictment that you end up submitting in court.
So let's move on to the case of former FBI Director James Comey and his prosecution and the absolutely blistering things we've heard now from two straight judges.
Yes.
That the grand jury didn't review the indictment. You've got issues, of course, on the statute of limitations, selective prosecution argument that Comey's attorneys are making. I mean, so there's a lot going on. Just, briefly kind of unpack this. And this seems like a very, very uphill battle for the prosecution here.
So the fundamental problem that the prosecution has faced over the last few days is that it's not at all clear whether the acting U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was lawfully appointed. And even if she was, it is not clear that she followed the necessary protocols to secure a legitimate indictment against Comey. So this individual is Lindsay Halligan. She was an insurance lawyer in Florida before she joined President Trump's legal defense team earlier this decade. And when the previous career prosecutor in that office refused to indict Comey because he felt it was a sham, he was pushed out and Trump installed Lindsay Halligan instead. In between, for one day, there was a woman who served as acting U.S. attorney who I actually went to college with, who also refused to bring this indictment and was then pushed out. So, credit to Maggie Cleary for her one-day tenure in this office. But after she was pushed out, Lindsay Halligan was installed. And she had never presented a case to a grand jury before. She didn't know what she was doing. She didn't really understand criminal procedure. And so it looks like she failed to present the final version of the indictment to the grand jury for its approval. And there's not a lot of ways that you can screw up with a grand jury. Like, grand juries famously will indict most people. It does appear that a majority of the grand jury voted to indict Comey on these charges, which I think are very weak, but that's another topic. But she never got the full grand jury, or at least the majority that voted to indict, to actually look at the indictment and ensure that it reflected their charges. That is a defect in the indictment. It means the indictment can't stand. I think that indictment is very likely to be thrown out. You have to get the grand jury's approval on the exact indictment that you end up submitting in court. So, the statute of limitations will be something of an issue here, because Comey was indicted like a day before the statute of limitations was set to run out on his alleged crime, which I still really don't think was a crime. But there is a federal statute that extends the statute of limitations by 6 months when there is a defect in an indictment. And so I think that won't be an insurmountable issue. I think the bigger problem will be getting a conviction at trial, because the accusations against Comey just don't make a lot of logical sense.
So I was going to ask you, what you thought this might say about further Trump-directed prosecutions, but it sounds like this is pretty much in and of itself. But overall, when you have defense attorneys who are going to go and say this is clearly a politically motivated prosecution, look at what the president said, look at, are any of these going to be able to stand up to that sort of scrutiny regarding partisan targeted charges?
So I think if any of them will, it'll be John Bolton's. Unfortunately, the facts in the Bolton case seem pretty clear that he did violate some statutes. Now, it's probably statutes that other people have violated who have written books about their time in government, right? He revealed secret information. He may have maintained and shared files that he wasn't supposed to maintain and share. But if he did indeed break the law, I think there's a real chance that a jury will indict him. All these other cases, the Comey case, the Tish James case, right? She's the Attorney General of New York. I think that those don't stand a chance. And I don't know if a judge throws them out immediately because they have these defects, they're too weak, there's a selective prosecution claim, or because they go to a jury and the jury just won't convict because they call BS. But I find it very unlikely that these will end up in a conviction. And, you know, for evidence of that, just look at what's happening in DC court now pretty much every week, right? We've seen grand juries refuse to indict. We've seen trial juries refuse to convict. They refuse to convict the sandwich guy. They've refused to indict people who have allegedly threatened or interfered with ICE officers. Like, people are pretty smart when they're put on grand juries and juries. They try to do their duties diligently, and they can see, with the help of a decent defense attorney, that what the prosecution is doing here is under the direction of Trump and not really in the interest of justice.
Now, next week, we are off. There is no America to Crossroads program in observance of Thanksgiving. 2 weeks from now, veteran diplomat and peace negotiator Aaron David Miller is with Mantle and Brand for an update on Israel and President Trump's plan for the Middle East.